Hey guys, Mike here. So it looks like we finally got some much needed cooling off in the market last week. We'll see if that continues in the next week or not. But I mean, it was very simple. We'll go into exactly what was happening and everything, why this happened. It's okay, it's normal, and then one headline that should not absolutely affect Monday. Okay, it's getting a lot of press. I'm going to set the record straight in this video on that. It should absolutely not affect the market come Monday, even though there were some very interesting tweets and news out there about this. And, when it comes to the markets, guys, just always remember, I told you guys, and look at the charts, look at what? The moving averages, right? Just think of them as rubber bands, okay? The stock gets stretched way above it. Wow, shockingly, it comes back, right? I'll even show you a stock tomorrow when I do a video setting up for the week here that has done something it has never done before since its IPO, and it's been around quite a while, and it's a huge stock, okay? And it surprised me when I saw it, so you'll probably be surprised too. But, that's all that happens. We just got way out here, and now we're coming down some. Don't mean we're going to touch it or anything. That's always healthy and constructive if it does, but probably not, right? So, that's just the way it works. And when you look, what caused this huge stretch above, we talked about it. What's running the market? Call volume, right? The options in the calls, it seems like every month we're hitting a new record. Well, of course, we hit a new record, right? In June, more calls than ever being bought up. I thought it was funny that the max pain chart that I share with the members every day, it got out of whack, and then all of a sudden, we started having equal days of like calls and puts, and it wasn't this crazy imbalance, and all of a sudden, those numbers started making sense again. That's not a coincidence that happened. It just makes sense. Plus, the daily ranges started making more sense and everything. But also what happened? Sentiment went through the roof. You can see it started going up. People get, all happy and stuff. They start buying stocks. I'll show you that in just a second. And this always happens when AAI sentiment goes up, right? What happens here? This is the exposure. This is people buying in, right? Investors and everything just piling in. So, of course, it pushes these index way up, gets them way above the moving average. And then, of course, when you look at this right here, this talks about U.S. equity positioning is now clearly overweight, although no, not at extremes, right? So keep that in mind. But just look at the straight line up and then look at the rest of the chart, okay? And so it's not at extremes. It can definitely go higher. So keep that in mind. That's what I'm saying. A breather is always good when you get these parabolic moves like we've had. And also understand, we talked about this one. I'm always fearful when I see the fear and greed index get over 80, and it got up to 83. It only goes to 100, okay? And usually, once you get over 75, that's when you're like, oh boy, something's about to happen and pull back, right? And you can see, we don't buy at the bottom. Retail likes to buy when everything gets really frothy, and of course, what happened? And we put in $1.5 billion in single stocks in 1 week, okay? And so, and it even says right there in that second line, NASDAQ 100's gap above 200-day moving average getting extreme. You think? Yeah, I think so too. And of course, what happens? Usually it's big money. They're trickling out the door. And you can see this is Traders Flee, world's largest tech ETF, the QQQ, which has just been on a tear. And you can see down at the bottom, that's the outflows right there coming out. And you can see, of course, when this happened, the Qs go, oh, well, look at the week right before, though, all that money flowing in, right? And usually this is what happens. I mean, big money just starts taking profits, and they sneak out the door, and retail is flooding in. We're the exit liquidity, so to speak. And guys, before we continue, if you're getting anything out of this, please hit that thumbs up down there. I really appreciate it. And if you like the material here and the videos, think about subscribing. And that's actually a good term to, put in your dictionary. We are the exit liquidity. We're what allows them they sell to us while they're getting out. And then, of course, we sell, as we're selling, they're buying us up on the way down, right? So it's always the opposite. The market's crashing and everything, it gets to a certain point where they'll just start buying up, right? Because the fear gets so extreme and they really start piling in. We're their entry liquidity. And then, of course, when the greed gets real frothy and the indexes and stocks get stretched way above the moving averages, we're their exit liquidity. That's just how it works, okay? And so, I mean, you got to do research on who come up with the word DCA blindly. That was them. They just tell retail investors, just DCA in. Don't even think about anything. Just DCA in blindly. Don't look at all these, any kind of indicators you have or anything. Just keep doing it, right? Because there'll come that point where greed gets so high, and then they say, thank you very much. I'm getting out. You're my exit, right? And then, of course, same thing happens at the bottom. They're the entry. So keep that in mind. And then speaking of liquidity, currently, look, I'll talk this to death because it's that important. I don't update this every day for the members for a reason. Look, liquidity is number one driver. Sentiment, probably number two, right behind it. They can go hand in hand at certain points in times and everything. But this is a chart of, this combines the treasury the Fed, the reverse repo program. And when it's going up, the market's going up. When it takes a big dive, the market takes dives, okay? And so that's why when they kept saying, oh, in June, the market's just going to tank and fall off 30%, and the whole time it's just been trickling up, trickling up, trickling up. And we do have this big, well, the biggest drop we've had in a while, just FYI, right here, and then start ticking back up. But I want to see, does this drop continue or not? Because remember, the market wants nothing more than Jerome Powell and his buddies, to start QE again. That's what they want. Just start spitting out that money, baby. And especially, who really wants it is China. And this is why you see China over the last few days, it just looks terrible, right? These Chinese stocks are getting hammered like dog meat because their government's not putting out the QE, right? They're cutting some rates very mildly or whatever. But again, they're wanting more. So watch out, because if the news does hit that their government's going to start stimulating, when they're talking about stimulating the economy, they're talking about the real estate market, like putting, when they used to build these ghost cities and everything, and their markets and the economy's going crazy. They're talking about that kind of stuff. A lot of projects, more projects being built and built and built, which is kind of crazy because they already got a supply issue over there. But, let's see what they do. And the market don't care, right? They don't care to make sense. The other thing is, you see the EV companies, but look at all the EV companies. Like even Tesla started taking a hit. But what were some of these down here in Lucid, Rivian, and Workhorse? Those were short squeezes, right? That's what was happening. And now all of a sudden they're falling off a cliff. So again, watch for dip buyers to come in on any of these stocks for any kind of good news. And you can see Friday, just FYI, it was like a total sector sell-off, right? It was the opposite of what happened the other day when it was totally green all over the place. But everything else was getting sold off. All the defenses were leading the way and stuff. Just keep that in mind when it comes to days like that. We saw it. I forgot what day it was, where everything was just super green, all the sectors, those are the kind of days you can just throw them to the side, honestly, because what do we see happening after that? Usually the opposite. And understand we're coming into quarter end, right? As I told the members, you're going to see this crazy stuff because what's happening? Profit taking, because you got to think of how big some of these firms are up, man. Even people in general are up, okay? 2, got to get those bonuses, right? 3, got to start reallocating. Where do we want to go? If we're up 300% in this thing or 100% in this one, and these are starting to lag over here, maybe we start putting some to work over here. And I'll kind of talk about one of those sectors tomorrow to watch out for closely, okay? Now, something that's getting a lot of headlines is what's going on in Russia. I'm going to spend like 30 seconds on this. Obviously, I'll just read this right here because I didn't know who this dude was either. But, you're talking about Wagner, which is a group of mercenaries, and there's a lot of mercenaries. They fought all over the world. Not a great reputation, just FYI. They've been sanctioned by almost every country in the world. But Russia's been using them in Ukraine. Well, all of a sudden, their leader says, hey, let's invade part of Russia because they're upset about something. But how I wanted to address this when it comes to the markets is what Tom Lee put out today. And because he's a perma bull, right? And he says, if this stuff is true about Russia, it could have market implications. And he puts in major market implications. And of course, it goes through what they say is happening there. But then it says, if this is true, this would likely be viewed as a catalyst for a lasting global peace. The reality might be quite different, but I believe this is what the market first instinct would be. This could drive a collapse in equity risk premium. And you think, oh, that means the market's going to go up crazy, right? And this somebody says, then the market may not melt up, which is what's been happening. And he says that's possible. And now, of course, news has already come out saying that they're withdrawing because they don't want any more bloodshed, all that fun stuff. And so there is no coup. This is what the news does. They, look at this right here. And the truth is, unless you're over there, you really don't know what the heck's happening. So again, they're reporting he's withdrawing, all that good stuff. Putin put out a statement and things like that, of course, saying people will be dealt with. So that's going to be an interesting thing. But, if this affects the markets Monday, I'm going to be stunned unless something happens, later today or tomorrow or whatever. But, as far as I know, it should be a nothing burger. Let's just keep that in mind. Again, I'll be honest with you, the only statement I didn't understand that was, how does a mercenary group taking out Putin and taking over Russia, how do we know they're not worse? You've seen what these people have done all over the world. So that's interesting, because then you put a mercenary group in charge of a bunch of nukes. So, yeah, that sounds great. Now, very simple here when it comes to the SPY and stuff. Look, this trend line right here, you can see all it did was it came up, broke through, got rejected again. If this MACD actually does roll over on the daily, yeah, we could absolutely see more downside, maybe get to the bottom of the channel. That could happen. You see how far stretched above the 50 it still is. And so when you get that far stretched above, especially the SPY, because it's more diversified, you tend to get pullbacks. It's not a bad thing if it comes down and bounces off that 50. It's actually a lot more healthy for this market if that were to happen. Okay, you got to understand that. Because there's plenty of dip buyers out there still left. We see that every day. I showed you the V-shaped recoveries like crazy. We joke about it in the Discord because that's just what happens, right? And one stock I will talk about, which, man, this stock right here, Tesla, just still continues to get hammered and rug pulled. I'll show you that in just a minute, right? And it, again, something comes out in the morning and it drops. But look at that level. So that shows you right there, dip buyers in full force to like 250, 254-ish. Like they're coming in full force, not let it drop below that, because this is a huge demand zone right now, and they don't want it to drop below this, right? And so, of course, on the hourly, you're seeing it. I mean, you got lower highs going on, but again, you're not setting any lower lows right there. So we just got to see what happens Monday. But what keeps happening is this is 3 in a row now. And this is what I told you, the game within a game right here. Here comes another fund out there saying, oh, we're going to downgrade it. We're going to give it a double downgrade. And instead of skipping the hold rating from the buy, we're going to sit there and say it's a sell. And I'm like, what in the world? And so this is very, very rare, right? So price target of 210. But, this is what happens, right? And we talked about this the other day when the first one came out. And then the second one comes in. This is the third one. Let's see if we get another one Monday. How about that? But it's like when they smell blood in the water, and you almost bet. I'd love to know. That's why I say I feel like if you're going to be able to issue any downgrades and upgrades, I'm not saying I disagree with any downgrades been put out there or any of the upgrades, but I just feel like you need to disclose, like, what is your position? Like, are you short right now? Because it makes no sense, especially this one when you say it's very rare to go to a double downgrade, right? And so, that just, and plus with the first one that came out, when they said, oh, Barker's like, I don't think this move is fundamental. It's like, really? Like, how many weeks have been saying, yeah, we know most of it was a gamma squeeze with the call option, just pushing and pushing it because it's been through it like 7 times now. Shows it on the charts. Like, what do you mean? Like, first of all, is anything fundamental right now? No, you got to be kidding me. Have you seen what's going on out there? Like, so when you see these, and then of course, was it Morgan Stanley jumped on board or whoever it was, JP Morgan. And so I just feel like me personally, I just feel like they need to disclose the position before they put these kind of things out there. And I bet you if that were to happen, man, you see a whole different ballgame going out there. You wouldn't have this kind of stuff happening where you're getting 3 in a row like this. Okay, because you know how much bet money. If they're doing a double downgrade, they either sold all their stock and started shorting or, don't have a position. Because there's no way you tell me, oh, yeah, we're holding plenty of Tesla. Like, come on, man. I mean, it's just kind of ridiculous in a way. And it's happened to so many stocks, and I've showed you guys that in the past with the research, these guys who do short reports and everything else. So and that's the only thing missing right now. I mean, are we going to get a short report? Is that what's next? I mean, that tends to be the game. But, tomorrow I'll end up bringing out, we'll look at, the Russell, which this thing right here, I told you, if you don't get above a certain level, don't bother, right? And so, we'll talk about a whole lot more tomorrow, and I'll show you that stock that is basically doing something it's never done before, and this is a mega cap stock, okay? And we'll go over a bunch of other stuff, but I wouldn't worry about the Russian thing. Let me know on the bottom if you're a Russian expert, what you're hearing. But I'm just going by what I'm hearing, and it doesn't seem like it's going to be a nothing burger at this point in time. But we got bigger things to worry about. But anyway, hope you guys got some out of it, guys. Really appreciate it and everything. Please hit that like and subscribe button, give it a thumbs up, share the video, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.